Alright, this video is for Section F, a cigarette or cigar ash retainer and or cigarette snuffer. Now before I really get started, I just wanted to show you how big of a mess smoking is for me. And this is actually relatively clean. So, I mean, this just happens everywhere. Anytime I have an ashtray, I usually get it all over the keyboard too. That's one of the reasons it looks so scuffed up. You know, because I'm constantly just getting ash everywhere. In fact, it's even all over my desk, etc. And it's just real annoying, and I know I'm not the only one that would have a problem like this. No matter how careful I try to be, it just always inevitably happens. Like I said, I do have a crude prototype of this. Let me see if I can adjust the... Yeah, I do have kind of a crude prototype of this. You know, if you can see it. And it's just something I fabricated off common aluminum window screen, but it does have some kind of coating on it, which actually makes it kind of toxic. But it does work. I mean, I just needed to do this as a proof of concept. You know, you just basically stick a cigarette in, like that until about right there, and then you can just light it, you know, when the device is on it, through the screen. Now I did have, you know, I did come across this screen. The spring here that I found somewhere, and it kind of works, but it's just a little too big of space. You know, spacing is too big between the turns of the spring, so it doesn't really hold on there. But it does kind of work, but the ash will tend to fall through it, you know, and it's kind of loose on here. I don't know where I found this, but it's in my junk box somewhere. Now, this is a cigarette snuffer prototype, which is I just made it out of aluminum foil, but it does work. You know, it's like I said, you know, if you set it on there, you know, to the level you want the cigarette to burn to, you know, like halfway, I can smoke it, and then when it hits this, as long as you're not continuously puffing on it, it'll put itself out, you know, just snuffs itself out with, you know, oxygen. Then later you can move it down a little bit and smoke it down to that level, and it'll snuff itself out. And, you know, and of course each time you got to light it again, and then, you know, eventually you just remove it and then smoke it down until you're done with it. But like I said, it does work. So, you know, even that crude little prototype does work. And, you know, so at the end of the day, you know, these may be crude, but, you know, they do at least prove the concept. And, you know, like I said, though, this screen, you know, does get, you know, tend to get a little hot, and it's kind of, you know, a little finicky, but, you know, it does tend to get a little hot, you know, right near the base, and that's why, like I said, in the provisional patent there, you know, I've got, you know, a version that has a silicon rubber kind of gasket. You know, so it should be something fairly high temperature, so that it, you know, you can put up with the heat, you know, because the heat's not enormous, but it does get rather warm. So it'd be nice if it's, again, silicon rubber or some other, you know, high temperature polymer that'll serve the dual function of gripping the, you know, the cigarette butt while leaving you plenty of room to actually grab it. But it won't burn your fingers and it won't melt. Again, I don't know if the temperature gets that hot, but again, you know, how hot it gets is also a function of how close the screen is to the cigarette. And this here it's so crude, it's just wrapped right around it. So, anyway, I'll demonstrate real quick how it's used in practice. I'll try to get everything adjusted here. Because, like I said, it's got the screen on it and everything. So, like I said, you just light it right through the screen. I mean, like I said, even when it's down halfway, you know, it can be, you know, it can easily be relit because it's a screen, so the flames go right through it. So it does work, and if it weren't for the screen, this whatever coating they have on there, it generates some toxic fumes. I would use this a lot because it is such, you know, so annoying. Although this still is kind of funky to put on there, you know, because it's again, it's a screen that I just have wrapped in a coil. I mean, there's nothing special about it. You know, it does tend to fight me sometimes when I'm trying to put it on. But again, it still works pretty darn good for a crude proof of concept. So. You know, at the end of the day, I do think this really would resonate with a lot of smokers out there. And like I said, you really don't. You can smoke this thing clear down to the butt without ashing it at all. So you really don't even need an ashtray, because the screen, the spacing on the screen, is sufficient to hold the ash in. The ash really does have that, cohesive property, that kind of keeps it together, more or less. So that, it's just not, it doesn't just turn to powder or anything, as I'm sure you know. So it actually keeps it fairly well contained. I mean, it's fairly clean, compared to what you might expect. So, but again, as it heats up that screen, it's got some kind of coating. It's black screen, so it's got some kind of coating on it. I would have thought it would be anodized, but maybe it is. I'm not exactly sure what they put in, in screen to anodize it, but, especially to color it. But, but the fact of the matter is that, I'd like to try it with some of that silver screen, but, it can be done with a lot of different materials. But, the point is to provide it. And by the way, you may have cheaped the Chinese lighter I used to light this. I do own a couple of Bics, but I save them for special occasions because they are good. But I don't like to, like I said, I'm not in the best financial shape right now, so, I tend to save them, especially once I start getting low on them. I tend to hoard them. So, just, for when those lighters annoy me enough, then I switch over to my Bics. I even keep some old Bics that are, mostly dead. I don't know if there's any fuel in it or not. Even just because the actual flint part of it is good enough to light one of these stupid lighters when their flint breaks, because you can go, like that, you can use it to spark up a flame on these sometimes. So, but again, I do way prefer Bic lighters, but at the end of the day, I'm, really not in good financial shape, so I can't afford them. But, the point is that that's the whole point. It adds value to actually another incentive outside of quality to actually go pay for a lighter. Because like I said, I get these for free. They give me one per carton when I buy cigarettes. So, at the end of the day, though, not everybody goes to smoke shops that give free lighters out. But the point is that still, I know these free lighters, you can go to these cheap lighters, you can go to the dollar store, same place I bought those Bics actually, and buy like the 10-pack for $2 or whatever, so even though they don't last very long, so I don't generally like doing that. But for a while there, my cigarette company wasn't giving free lighters anymore, so that's when I started buying some, dollar store lighters and then some Bics too. Because again, when you're paying for lighters, I don't care if you get 10 or 12 of them, 2 Bics will last you just as long, as those. I mean, it's just simply more reliable. But having said that, free is free, and, then you definitely have to have some incentive, for either free lighters or next to free lighters, to go buy a more premium product. And, but this adds extra incentive, to try to, want to spend some money. So like I said, you could actually bring some more business, to your doors and get them away from, some more market share away from those cheaper Chinese lighters, which really do suck. Everybody I know that uses them hates them. My mom hates them, I hate them. So, at the end of the day, though, free is free, and, they give you just enough to where, you usually don't run out of them. But again, even if you have to buy them, it's still, from a consumer standpoint, hard to justify paying a similar price for 2 years or 4 years or whatever it is, whatever the comparison was. It's been a while since I bought any. Versus 10 or 12 of theirs. So, it still, sways most people. But the fact of the matter is, though, is if you had a value-added product like this, boy, it could really, help boost your sales quite a bit. So, and you can see here, I'm almost, completely down. I haven't ashed yet. It's burned down clear there, at this point. So anyway, you can see here, I'm just about done with the cigarette now. I mean, it's almost completely, down to the line on it. So, you know, this is a time when, like I said, you'd pretty much want to take your, you know, final puff on it. Let's see if I can work the camera here. And by the way, this is a bottle of tea. It's not a bottle of urine or anything. I'm maybe weird, but I'm not that weird. I'm eccentric, but not that eccentric. But yeah, basically, you know, when you get down to it, you know, you just pull it out, put your cigarette away, and then you can just, you know, dump the ash out, and you're done. So, you know, like I said, you can just let the cigarette burn fully out and throw it in a trash can if you want. After removing the screen, of course. Anyway,